Hello, and welcome to the Cultivating Confidence podcast. I am your host, Dr. Nicole Grams. I am a life coach who specializes in anxiety, health, and human design. And I also happen to be a functional medicine pharmacist. This podcast is a compilation of conversations that I've had with clients and colleagues. So listen in as we explore the mind, body, and soul's confidence in its many forms. On this episode of Unscripted, I had the opportunity to be interviewed by my amazing colleague, Abbigail Linde. She is a Willpower Coach. Listen in as we discuss what it was like transitioning from being a pharmacist to a coach and all of the mental blocks that came with that.
Okay, so today we are here with Nicole Grams. I'm very excited to talk to her today. We actually have quite a long history. And so it'll be really fun to kind of look back and then also talk about her transition because she started as a pharmacist. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for chatting with me. My first question that I always want to start all of this with, because I think it's been interesting as I have started to ask this question to people. Why or how did you go about becoming a pharmacist in the first place?
Yeah. My family has a lot of healthcare providers in it, specifically nurses. My mom's a nurse, my grandma's a nurse. Like there's a whole bunch of nurses in my family. I didn't want to go into nursing because I didn't want to stab people with needles, which is funny because I went into pharmacy, so I wouldn't have to do that. And that's what we ended up doing anyway. And it's totally fine. But long story short, I always credit my high school track coach as my sort of inspiration because we filled out these bubbles and the personality things and like, oh, here's what you should consider being. And mine was a lot of stuff in the medical field, but it wasn't pharmacy specifically. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I can't be a pharmacist then if it's not on this page, because I was a very sarcastic teenager. And he looks at me and he said, you can be a pharmacist. And he made some joke about how much money they made and whatever. But that coach was killed in a car accident before my senior year. And I always heard him like cheering me on. So I guess long story. Yeah, that wasn't maybe as short as I expected it to be, but
that's okay.
I sort of had my one track mind since like 10th grade that I wanted to be a pharmacist. And that's sort of how I pigeonholed myself into this rut of like, this is the way we're going. This is what you need to do. Here are the steps, go.
What was, when you were younger, since you decided so early, like what was your vision of what a pharmacist does? Like, why was that appealing? Other than it just being in the healthcare field?
Yeah, I think it kind of just started with this is healthcare that, you don't have to go to school for 50 years to be a part of. There's a decent income. You can help people with their medications. And like, it wasn't I'm born to be a pharmacist sort of thing. It was just sort of this kind of ticks all the check, or like this checks all my boxes.
Yeah. I relate to that so much. I had a very similar experience. I originally thought I wanted to be a doctor and I was like, that sounds like too much school. Yep. I'll do this instead.
Yep.
And I'm super curious if it can't just be a pharmacist thing. I'm doubting that it is, but there are a lot of people that have just kind of ended up in pharmacy because like, it was kind of fine. Like it was fine.
And there are also people that this is everybody in their family has been a pharmacist. Yes. So this is a natural thing, but totally. I mean, we all have our own unique experiences, but a lot of us have that like, well, this kind of just fit.
Totally. And so let's see, let's jump forward now. Mm-hmm. And then maybe we'll go back and like connect the dots.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now?
Now I am an anxiety coach, general life coach, sort of all wrapped into one. I also use human design with my clients and I am loving it.
Amazing. So you're an anxiety coach. So you work with people that have anxiety and want to resolve it.
Yeah.
And you use human design. I just learned about human design. Actually, my coach was like, hey, you should check this out. Her and I laugh a little bit because I'm a little bit more like I want to understand the mechanism and like
Hmm.
why the thing works. And she's very much like, doesn't matter why it works, it just does.
Yeah.
So she shares a lot of stuff with me and then vice versa. And it's always really fun. And human design is one lately that I've been really excited about. Tell me what you think about, or like what your philosophy around it is.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
So for those of you who are not aware, because it's a fairly new sort of thing, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
I
it's
just
a
recently learned about it.
Yeah, it's a chart that basically combines it's based on your birth time and date and all that sort of thing. Um Actually that's just it. It's a birth time, date, place.
Yeah.
But it combines like the Kabbalah, I Ching, astrology, the chakra system, quantum physics, like all wrapped up into one chart. And it seems like as the open-minded skeptic that I have always been, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, I'll put my information in. Let's see what it says.
Totally.
And like, um, when I learned about my chart and started kind of diving in, I was blown away at how accurate it was and how much permission it gave me to be myself.
That is literally the word that I have too. It removed so much like shame and
Yeah.
shitting about like, you are supposed to be this way in the
Right.
world. And this was like, nope, actually, you're fine just the way you are.
Yep.
That is exactly my
Yeah.
experience with it too.
Yeah. So mine, it matched what it made so many things in my past make sense as to why I was responding the way I was and like how I felt awkward in different situations or whatever it was. But this was
Mhm.
sort of like oh, well, I've been trying so hard to not be that my whole life, but you're telling me this is how I should be? Wild.
Yes.
But yeah, so for me, it resonated so strongly. I was like, okay, I need to know everything. And I have the one line. So I'm an investigator. I need to find out all the things and whatever.
Yeah.
But also that being said, I use it as a tool. It is not the end all be all. I must live my life according to human design.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to pull tools from lots of different things that make sense to me. I kind of lead I it's a cafeteria, right? Like I take the things that I like that work for me and I pull some extra stuff that might work for my clients, but like it's it's an experiment. Human design is an experiment of like, okay, well, if my chart tells me this about myself, like I want to test that and like try it this way and see how things work out.
Yeah.
And you can absolutely override that and try it a different way and see how it works out and like just live
Yeah.
your life however it works the best for you.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. I love that. I want to circle back to the
Yep.
anxiety coach thing.
Yes.
So, you know, when you were a pharmacist, you worked in the community setting only
Yep.
or primarily? Okay,
Yep. No,
I guess we
only.
skipped that. Okay.
Yeah, I obviously had rotations in hospitals and everything, but that never really excited me. Um,
Mhm.
I liked working in retail. I liked having patient contact and helping people with issues like that day. Like teaching somebody how to use an inhaler was one of my favorite things because it's like, oh, I can actually help them breathe better at home. This is crazy. This is amazing. And that sort of eventually morphed into, okay, well, I'm going to take care of myself more. I'm going to learn about food. I'm going to learn about all this stuff. And then I found functional medicine. So I guess I didn't mention that I also do functional medicine consultations as well as anxiety coaching. But here's another aspect of the like, I'm pulling the things that all work because like with anxiety coaching, you can work on the mental piece all day long, but if your physical body is not taken care of, it's not going to do as much as you want it to, and vice versa, where you can be eating
Totally.
healthy, exercising, like doing all the things exactly right, but if your mental space is trash, like you're still going to feel worn out and anxious all the time. So like you have to
Totally.
pull from multiple things in order to keep going and improve.
I'm curious. I totally agree with you. And I
Mhm.
wonder, when you were practicing as a
Yeah.
pharmacist in the community setting, were you able to do that? It feels very narrow,
Yeah.
generally speaking, to me at least. I'm curious about your experience with that. If that
So my I really honestly think that my mental transformation has happened in the past 5-ish years. So most of my career, I didn't really have the tools or the like emotional intelligence that I have now in order to use and help people use both sides of things.
Hmm.
That being said, I also didn't really have the physical health knowledge that I have now, having gone through the functional medicine training that I've gone through. So while I gave advice and it was helpful, it was really more like, okay, well, here's this pill that can help you with something. And let's sort of ignore all the rest of it and maybe don't eat the chips, right? Like
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
salts, like let's get low salt going.
Yes. Dash diet.
Right.
Dash diet is the answer to all things, according
Yes.
to pharmacy school. Yes, totally.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
I'm very happy to have morphed along the way and evolved in my own practice, and bringing functional medicine in while I was in retail was really helpful. But then like kind of giving myself permission to step into that role as a coach and like use all of the anxious years that I spent, toiling away to putting it to good use and helping people
Yeah,
through their own mess of a head.
totally. And they're messy. It's messy up
It is
there.
so messy.
So messy. And then, okay, I'm guessing that your goal isn't to like clean it up, but to let people be okay with the mess, I would imagine.
That's part of
Because,
it for sure,
yeah,
but there's also the aspect of cleaning it up as well. I mean,
yeah,
again, multidisciplinary approach of like there isn't
totally.
one answer that's gonna work for
Yeah,
everybody.
that makes sense. That makes sense. My work personally is to let things be a mess.
Hmm.
That's what I have to work on the
Yep.
most. So apparently I'm projecting that on all of your clients. Oh, funny. Okay, cool. So we kind of talked about a little bit there. What do you think? So there's a very certain, training program when you become a pharmacist. It's a doctorate degree,
Hmm.
right? And there's like a pretty narrow way of practicing as a community pharmacist. There's a little bit more now, as you were mentioning. You were using a little of your functional medicine, kind of lifestyle support.
Yep.
There it is expanding a little bit,
For sure.
in some places.
Yep.
Um, and it's very different from what you're doing now. Are there things that you took from pharmacy school, being a pharmacist, that you use now in your practice? Or was it like not doing that anymore, on to the next?
I think it's probably more mixed than I see it as. But once I discovered functional medicine and kind of moved into that space, I was like, all right, well, why didn't I start here? But like, I wouldn't have gotten there if I hadn't started in the other place, right? Which is,
Totally.
I appreciate the journey that I've been on. I think the skills that I use now from my retail days are more like asking questions, getting curious, like, oh, like, whereas before it would be like, okay, what sort of symptoms are you having? Now it's more diving into, okay, what sort of thoughts are you having? And it's skills that I had that I just needed to polish in a different way.
Totally. That's actually interesting. So one of the things that I always think about with pharmacists is like, we are experts at, like, you take a thing, you put it in your body, what are the impacts in your body,
Hmm.
right? So I always think about it in the sense of like, injecting yourself with insulin versus eating a donut or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
we can understand that whole process.
Yeah.
What you're saying is really interesting because you're talking about the curiosity that comes along with like addressing side effects or clinical issues being correlated to like the thoughts,
Hmm.
the feelings that someone might be having.
Right.
That's interesting. I like that. Is there anything that you miss from being a pharmacist? Or let me ask this question first.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. Do you currently like identify as a pharmacist? Like, are you practicing as a pharmacist right now?
I do have a part-time job as a pharmacist. But I also
Like community setting or?
no, it's actually veterinary pharmacy. So it's
Oh,
completely
okay.
removed from the human world.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't really ask the dogs how their symptoms are doing or anything. I mean,
totally.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So that part of my life seems a little bit removed from what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Totally.
Yeah. I think once I gave myself permission, like there was so much guilt wrapped up in the transition process because like I decided when I was in 10th grade, this is what I want to do. And like I kind of mentioned, I like put myself in this rut of like, here's what you do, go for it. And then when I reached the end of what I thought would be, the pinnacle of my life, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, this is actually kind of
Shoot.
disappointing.
Yeah.
But like not in ways that like I love patient interaction, and that's what I do like the daily like pop quizzes almost of retail pharmacy. Like that's the part that I kind of miss.
Yeah.
I don't miss the, trying to figure out insurance and trying to figure out, back ordered drugs and like all of that sort of stuff really starts
Yeah.
to wear on you after a while. But
Totally.
but yeah, I miss the aspect of like really quick patient interactions that can be beneficial. But I mean, I get to do that on a much deeper level, one-on-one with clients.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a lot more fulfilling for me doing what I feel like I'm meant to do.
Oh, I just got chills a little bit. That's exciting. I did notice I wrote down ruts when
Hmm.
you had said that originally,
Yeah.
because I related to that a lot.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch, I completely forgot about the guilt part of it because like when you have decided that this is what you want to do and this is what your life is going to look like, and then you find out, well, actually I'm there and that's not really what I like anymore. There's a lot of like, oh my gosh, I spent all this time and all this money making this happen in my life and now I don't want it. Like, what's wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
So I think that's I mean, I have been an anxious person my whole life. And like that was sort of like oh my gosh, what do I do? Because I'm kind of
Yeah.
going a little bit insane. And I feel like there's so much more for me out there. And it was finally I hired a business coach and I finally gave myself permission to step out of the box that I had put myself in as a pharmacist.
Yeah. So you go through the work
Yep.
of permission to step out of the box.
Mhm.
How was it with like the others around you?
I have a
Because
very
they kind of
supportive.
have to go through that themselves too.
Right, right. To a lesser degree, because I mean, it's a very visceral, like identity crisis that happens almost, or at least it was for me, of the like, this is what I always said. Well, this is new and scary and terrifying, and my brain can't handle it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a very supportive spouse. There are a few of my friends who thought I was absolutely insane. And also, I knew that that was part of the process because as you grow and expand and learn and change and evolve, like there will be people who are no longer meant to be in your life. And not saying that I just, cut the cord on all my friends. Like that's not it at all. But like I'm going here now. If you're not on board with me going here, like I love that you were a part of my life and like I'll see you around. Um,
That's
but
like a
like
very healthy way of looking at
yeah,
it.
and it's not nearly as as warm and fuzzy as that probably sounds, but also like knowing that this is what I want to do with my life now, this is who I want to become. I have to surround myself with people who believe that that is also possible for me.
Totally.
Yeah. So like I
Yeah.
started by simply going to there's a women's entrepreneur group in town that I found online and I was like, "Oh, they have a meeting like next week. Perfect. I'm available. I'll
Amazing.
go." And like being surrounded with other women who have been entrepreneurs and like it was simply an entrepreneur group. It wasn't like a healthcare or anything specific. It's like
Yeah.
if you own a business, you can be a part of our club. And it was so
Amazing.
inspiring seeing women of like every different age like in there doing their thing and loving it. And so like surrounding yourself with people who want to see you succeed in this way is one of the most important things that I ever did.
That's awesome. That's a good tip. There's a group near me and I have not yet reached out to them.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me that I
Hmm.
should do that. That's that's cool. Thank you.
Hmm.
Um okay. Let's see. I said we were going to come back to something. Was it, what do you miss about being a pharmacist? I think it
Maybe.
was. And
Yeah.
then I think you answered that. Okay,
Yeah.
good job.
Thanks.
Good job. Okay. So I was going to ask, what are you loving about what you're doing right now? I
Mhm.
feel like you kind of talked about that a little bit more. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Um, I think what I'm loving is also something that terrifies me. So I think I mean
Mm,
it's really just the freedom to create whatever I want, essentially.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's also a lot of work that I am learning how to balance because I'm in the middle of like creating 3 different presentations right now. Like this is all of it is coming up right now for some reason, but I've learned to set things aside that like I haven't been on social media in a while. I do plan to get back on there because I found amazing clients through social media. But for right now, that's on the back burner as I create these presentations for people to hopefully benefit from in the near future. But yeah, it's the freedom of creativity and like if I can dream it, I can find a way to make it happen, or at least make a
Yeah,
version of it happen, or find somebody else who can help me make it happen. Um, it's not possible to do that in retail pharmacy necessarily, or there's a lot more barriers to
yeah,
being able to create a practice that you want. But
totally.
but yeah, it's the freedom to create and really just dive in with people into the muck and help pull them through.
Love that. Do you, so you're loving the creativity piece. Have you always been a creative person?
Yeah, in
Would you,
different ways. Um, once that was another like identity shift of the like I have to believe it's possible for more to happen in my life, where I was very convinced that that was not possible for me. Like I mean there was a point in time when I was working in retail where I considered, and this was many years ago, where I considered looking for a different job and I was just so convinced that my skills wouldn't apply to anywhere else and I didn't know anybody, and like I was very stuck in my belief system of like this is what my life is supposed to be. So, like, I forget what your question was specifically.
have you always identified as a
Oh,
creative person?
yeah. So once I was able to kind of open my mind up, that's when creativity really started pouring out of the like, what could be possible? Like, what would this look like if I could do that? Like, what would it feel like for me to be able to, insert whatever harebrained idea I had at the
Yeah.
time?
Do
And
you
yeah,
do any artsy type creativity thing? I'm
I
going somewhere
do.
with this line of questioning. Just
Yeah,
for
I do.
wondering.
I love painting. I love, I mean, I've always considered myself an artist, even from like high
Okay.
school. And like, yeah, I have paintings hung on my walls and yeah.
Okay. So the reason I was asking, again, I'm projecting,
Yep.
because I never really identified as creative.
Hmm.
In pharmacy school, very much like learn these facts, uh, teach your patients these things. When
Hmm.
this happens, X happens, and then Y happens, and then Z, right? Like it felt very, I don't know, planned
Yep.
and very
Strategic.
factual, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And recently I've been having this sense of creativity, not in really in the sense of like painting
Yeah.
or like art, but like you're saying, like creating presentations, programs, like content to
Hmm.
share with people. It's a bit of an identity shift for me because I'm like, I'm not a creative person. What is happening? I'm creating things. I
Yeah.
guess I am a creative person. And this whole it's interesting, sometimes freaks me out, right? Because it's like this isn't who I thought I was, like you're
Right.
saying, right? Like I guess for me in that sense it kind of happened not on purpose,
Hmm.
but now that I recognized it, I am like actively working to cultivate that
Sure.
more in my life. So
Yeah, and I just want to say a little something about that. There are so many people out there who think they are not creative people, but if you really think about it, you have created your entire life. whether it's in a strategic way, whether there's colors and flowers and patterns all over the place, it doesn't matter. Like you
Yeah.
are a creator and you are creative because like we create our lives based off our thoughts. And we want to create a life that looks like this, and we go about doing that. So it's not necessarily the artistic or the, musical or anything like that, but we are all creative.
Totally. And even when I was giving that example about pharmacy, my brain was like, well, we had to do some creative problem solving a lot of times, whether it's like you were saying, to get payment for a medication or to help a patient actually remember to take a pill or whatever
Yeah,
it was. Like there is some creativity there.
for sure.
It's just not generally recognized
Yeah.
as
We
such,
don't call it
right?
that. Yeah.
No, no, that would be a very scary word, I feel like,
Yep.
for at least me, 10 years ago.
For sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Is there anything that you were really happy to leave behind? We talked about what you missed. What
Yeah.
is something you were really happy to leave behind in pharmacy?
The daily grind. Um, I like having some structure in my day, but having the like, I start work at this time and I end work at this time every day over and over and over again
Yeah.
really wore me out and burned me out on a level that I did not realize because I was so determined that this is what life was supposed to be like. So I just overrode that. And then I ended up with adre- adrenal issues and like all kinds of
Yes.
hormone imbalances and so many things going on in my life. But I don't miss the daily grind. I love just being able to create the days that I want. I mean, to within a certain extent, like if I could just sit around and do whatever and read books all day, I would absolutely
Yes.
do that. I'm not at that point in my career as a coach yet.
Same.
Someday,
Same.
right?
Yes. I wonder, oh, that's an interesting question. So I have the same thought where it's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I just kind of want to do nothing sometimes, a
Yeah.
lot of times.
Hmm.
Especially I'm a little bit newer. I'm newly out of the day-to-day pharmacy stuff, but so then what my brain does is it tells me, well, then you're just a lazy bum and there you don't want to do any, you don't want to contribute to life and all
Right.
of this stuff. And it's hard to like give yourself the permission to relax and take the time and give yourself rest when you need rest.
Hmm.
And also like be passionate about something and like
Right.
drive towards something. How have you kind of found that balance, or have you, I guess?
Honestly, human design helped me with permission to relax. The energy type that I am is a projector. So I am not meant to have the 9 to 5, go, go, go. Like I am like, it literally says projectors and non-energy types are meant to work for like 4 hours a day. And that's like effortful work, not like if
Sure.
you're in the flow and you're doing like when I'm painting or something, when I'm being creative in some way, I don't count that as work. I can still do things on top of that. Like it's not like I'm
Sure.
sitting around and napping all day, but I do allow myself to rest. I do schedule in like an hour or so. Like Wednesday mornings, I try not to schedule anything too early in the morning simply because I work Monday and Tuesday and I know that my battery needs a reset. So,
Hmm.
like, I given myself permission to be lazy on Wednesday
Yes.
mornings and like indulge in the laziness and then like set a time for myself. Like, okay, I'm going to be out by this time. I have a meeting at this. I have to go do this. So, like, I had something at 10 o'clock this morning. But like, most people don't have the freedom to wait until 10 o'clock to start something.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, like,
And even if they did,
yeah,
they guilt themselves about
right.
it. So then they don't even let themselves
Yep.
enjoy that or, you know,
Yeah. And
indulge in
and there
that.
are certainly days where, and especially coming up with these presentations that I'm working on, there will be days where I work later at night than I want to,
Mhm.
but I also kind of set myself, I'm going to be done working with either meetings or whatever I'm working on by 8 o'clock. And that includes like a dinner break or whatever. And then I come back and work for a couple of hours, but I want to be done by 8 o'clock so I can spend time with my spouse and we can watch TV or a movie or something before we go to bed and like just have this time to chill and decompress before going to bed, which is also really helpful for sleep.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Good old evening routine. Yeah,
indeed.
amazing. So, are you currently taking like, are you currently working with clients?
Yes.
And taking new clients? Okay,
Yes.
talk to me a little bit about how people can find you if
Yeah.
they want to learn more about you.
Yeah. So I have a website, NicoleGrams.com, where there's more information about what I do. And there's a link that you can schedule a free consultation call with me. And on that call, we talk about whether it would, like, what you want to get from a coaching relationship, what I offer, whether we're a good fit for each other, and we can move on or not from there.
Okay, cool. And you have a podcast,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
I don't know if this is going to be show notes or what it's going to be, but we'll get all of the links in all of the places so that
Yeah.
people can find you for sure.
Okay.
Because I know there are people listening to this that have anxiety. Is there anybody that doesn't? It's so hard for me to imagine like not going through life with anxiety that I just can't. I'm having a hard time imagining that person.
Yeah. So there are definitely people with less anxiety.
Yeah,
There are also people who don't think they have anxiety.
totally.
And I mean that because now that I have spent so much time in the world of learning about anxiety and working it out with people, I see things that are like, oh no, actually, like perfectionism is an anxiety response. Wanting to have everything planned out ahead of time is an anxiety or like needing it, not just like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
make a plan for my day, but like, no, I can't proceed on this trip unless I have things mapped out exactly how they're supposed to be. Like
Mhm.
that is anxiety that is showing up in your daily life. So yeah,
Totally.
there are definitely lots of different ways that that happens, but I think
Yes.
everybody, and it's a normal, I guess I didn't cover this part, but like it's a normal response that your body has. Like it's a normal human emotion and you're meant to have it. It's supposed to give you information, but it's one of those like when it's on overdrive, that's when it starts causing issues and it's not helpful anymore.
Yeah. When it's too much. I
Yes.
think that was one big thing for me. Again, I think we already talked about this is having anxiety isn't actually a problem.
Right.
Like, it doesn't have to be a problem. Like,
Yep.
oh, I'm anxious about this thing. Okay, like nothing's gone wrong here. Like,
Yep.
it's okay.
Yeah.
And that was like it's permission to have anxiety almost, right?
Yeah.
Like permission apparently is the theme of our this
It's
show
very
today.
freeing.
It is. It is amazing. Okay. So we'll make sure to get everything linked. Did we miss anything? Anything else you want to add?
We
It
can
was
always
fun.
talk again if there was anything big.
Totally. Totally. It was fun catching up with you. I
Yeah.
purposely didn't go dig around too much because I wanted to hear from you what you've been working on lately. I'm excited
Yeah.
to hear what the 3 presentations are when that can be released. So it'll be fun.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Mhm.
Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. Many of you will be able to take the ideas that you've heard and apply them in your daily life, and that's really all you need. That's amazing. But for those of you who could use a little one-on-one help with how to make these things actually work for you in your real life, please reach out. The link to schedule a consult with me is in the show notes. You don't have to do this alone. See you soon.